Good day, everyone across North America. This is John Garmendi with Sony's Professional Solutions, and I wish to thank you for joining Sony in another of our Tech Tuesday webinars. These webinars were begun in response to the COVID crisis so that you, our customers, channel partners, integrators, and consultants can stay up to date on Sony's latest product and solutions. Today's webinar will focus on Sony's NDI HX capable PTZ cameras. A couple of points of housekeeping. As always, we will take questions at the end of the webinar. So please submit your questions via the question panel. I'll be posting links in the chat panel to information referenced during the webinar. I'll also post a link to our past archived Tech Tuesday webinars found on our YouTube channel. And I'd also ask that you please continue to provide us your feedback on requests for future topics. Joining us again as our main presenter today is Kiana Pompa. Kiana is our sales support engineer for Sony's Western Zone. Also with us today is Drew Buttress, product manager for our PTZ cameras. With that, I'll turn it over to Kiana, and I'll see you back here for Q&A.
Welcome back to our webinar series. Today we're going over NDI HX enabled cameras, what is NDI, and items needed to start up, a live demo of the Studio Monitor application, and also a live demo of NDI virtual input towards the end. So let's hop right into it. So this is an introduction of our new X series cameras. We have three different model lines, BRC X400, SRG X400, or X120. And it's Sony's first IP 4K PTZ camera with the capability of NDI HX built in. So you're going to get superior image quality with the Sony brand we know and love. So essentially, NDI gives us lots of benefits, but it is going to be a single network cable that can do all of the capabilities, meaning pan, tilt, and zoom, full camera control, PoE plus, and remote viewing over NDI. And for those of you who might not be familiar with what NDI is basically a high quality, low latency IP video transmission standard by NewTek. NDI specifically with HX has roughly around 50 milliseconds of latency, which can be around 2 to 3 frames of latency, depending on what rate you're using. And it runs around 10 megabits of bandwidth used on your network. It will automatically detect your NDI camera as a source on the network with other NDI capable receivers. And it integrates tally support, pan, tilt, zoom operations with presets, and then remote control over IP via the Studio Monitor application, which we'll be going over shortly. So here are some resources before we begin and how we created this whole scenario. The first one is that you do need a Sony NDI enabled camera. To do this, you have to purchase the NDI license from the NewTek website, and we have the link here, and John Garmendi will also provide the link in the chat. You also have to download NDI tools directly from the NewTek website as well. This is a completely free download and gives you tons of applications that are really, really handy, and we will be going over 2 of them today. And then to complete the NDI installation instructions, we have a complete manual for all of you made by Sony specifically for installing the licenses on our cameras, and that also will be provided in the chat. So this is a scenario here in my home office. What we're using currently is the BRC X400 connected to a PoE switch, also again enabled via NDI, and it has also the capability of my Wi-Fi router. So I'm using my PC over Wi-Fi to access the BRC X400 over NDI. We are going to take this NDI feed using the help of the NDI virtual input application to stream the BRC X400 over video conferencing platforms. It supports various. Today we are going to showcase Zoom, WebEx, and Microsoft Teams. And additionally, we are also going to showcase the use of Edge Analytics appliance with PTZ auto tracking to really showcase how you could use multiple Sony applications with NDI. So without further ado, I will show you NDI Studio Monitor. So NDI Studio Monitor is a tool that comes in a package when you download NDI tool. Once you open it, you'll see that your camera is automatically detected. It also gives you a QR code to scan with mobile devices if you'd like to control your camera via your mobile device. So really handy. Once you do that, you have your live video feed here, and you can actually provide control of the camera. You can also recall presets that have already been stored. So here's preset 1, and say if I want to store a different preset, I'm here in my home office. I could store, say for example, 8. I can recall back to 1, and then recall back to 8. So a really handy tool here. Another cool functionality with the Studio Monitor is it does have a record button. So if you want to record on the fly, this video content will be saved directly onto your PC and can be used or streamed after. If you see here, it gives me all of the cameras that I have on my network that are NDI capable. Currently, I only have the BRC X400. But if you had more, you can toggle and change to different camera feeds as well. So now that you know a little bit about Studio Monitor, let's get into NDI Virtual Input. So again, NDI Virtual Input is an application offered in the NDI tool. And to find it, you just click on the application. When that happened, honestly, I was a little bit confused on where is the application and how do I open it. The application actually lives here. You'll see NDI is running in the background, and all you have to do is specify the feed. So as you see, since I only have one, it already selected the BRC X400 and channel 1. So now if we open up, say for example, Microsoft Teams, and you go into the settings, select devices, you'll see that the camera feed is available here. So this is, USB capture. This is my little USB camera on the top of my PC. I'm going to specify that I want to use the NewTek NDI video. Additionally, say if you're using Zoom, it's the exact same concept. You just want to open up your devices to verify that you're using your NDI feed. So if you're going to select video, I just confirmed NDI video is available for me to use using video conferencing. And the last one will be WebEx. This is already a pre-configured meeting with my product manager on the East Coast, Drew Buttrick. So I'll go ahead and join the meeting. And as you can see here, WebEx has the exact same capability where it says select camera. I can specify using my front camera here, or I can specify using my NDI video feed. Once I click on join the meeting, I'll see Drew on the far end. So now that you know that NDI Virtual Input can basically connect to any video conferencing platform, I'm often asked by customers, why use an NDI capable camera? Basically, a lot of the benefit is that you're no longer restricted by the limitation of USB. This provides you access to the NDI stream from anywhere on your network. And a couple of examples would be use cases for remote learning or even remote worship. I will show you a perfect use case here in my home office. So If you recall on my system diagram, we discussed how we could use our Edge Analytics appliance for PTZ auto tracking. If you're not familiar with our Edge Analytics appliance, we did discuss it in a previous webinar, which John has posted the links to in the chat. So if you want to know in depth on how I set this up, you could review that video. But for this use case, we are going with the assumption that we've already pre-configured these settings, and all we're going to do is click on Run on our Edge Analytics appliance. That way we can enable PTZ auto tracking. So as you can see, here is my home office. I set it up for kind of like a virtual e-learning application. So I will show you the video feed and how you would use it in a live scenario. So now all of you in the far end should see my video stream in full screen. And as I step into the frame, you will see that the camera begins tracking me. And this video feed is streamed over to you using NDI virtual input over GoToWebinar. And our PTZ auto tracking actually replaces the use of a camera operator. So it's really neat. Even if you have your back face towards the camera, PTZ auto tracking will still follow you. So now we've gone over tons of use case scenarios. So I'll go back to our PowerPoint presentation and allow for some Q&A.
Thank you very much, Kiana. Great job as always. We do have some questions coming in, so I guess we'll take them in order. First question is from Tom, and he asks, is there a difference between NDI and NDI-HX?
Yes. So NDI-HX is a software version of NDI that basically has a bit more latency in comparison. If latency is a concern, you can also purchase an NDI Spark where the appliance is performing NDI via hardware.
Okay, great. We've got a question from Robert. He asks, can you upgrade Sony cameras like the FS700, the FS5, or the FS5 to be NDI enabled? Drew, would you want to take that?
Yeah, no, I can. So those cameras are not natively NDI-HX ready, but if you wanted to bring that into an NDI workflow, as Kiana just mentioned, the Spark, and there's a couple of different models, one for SDI, one for HDMI. So taking the raw video feed out of one of those cameras and feeding it into the Spark. Now, I think those cameras can do higher than, I think the FX9 I know does 4K 60. I don't know if the Spark is rated that high. You'd have to check with New Tech on that, but certainly if you ran the camera at 4K 30 or even just full HD, Spark would convert that to a low latent, a much lower, well, not much lower, but a lower latency NDI signal to bring into, say, a New Tech TriCaster, or if you're going to use one of these software-based tools that Kiana mentioned.
Okay, great. We have a question from Paul, and he asks, Kiana, what were you using for a microphone when you illustrated the tracking?
Oh, so with my microphone, I just called into the webinar. But if you saw in my video, maybe the question came with the beamforming microphone that's above my head. That can also be used in conjunction, but in this case, it's just calling in from my phone.
I think we have a related question from Joe. He asks about the audio capabilities of NDI. He wants to set up a camera in a theater to record rehearsals. Wants to know how to record audio.
I'll take that one, John. So if you bring the audio, so first of all, the X series cameras do have stereo audio inputs. They can be set to line or mic. On the back of the camera, they are 3.5 millimeter, mini jacks. We will embed the audio into the stream, and so NDI would be actually transmitting the audio, probably with timestamps like we would do in, say, our RTSP feed, and at the receiving end, they would be able to strip out that audio, and with the time tags, they're able to do the lip sync.
Okay, great. We have a question from Lisa. She asks, does Sony have any other NDI capable cameras in addition to the X series?
I can take that one. So currently the X series models are the only cameras on our lineup that will support NDI HX, but we are launching the new SRG XB25 and SRG XP1 that will offer the optional NDI HX license coming end of summer.
Great. Let's see. We do have other questions. Does this work with Zoom integration? So can you integrate with Zoom? That's from Paul.
Yes, Paul. As you saw earlier in the webinar portion, we did go over how to click on Zoom and specify the NDI device. So yes, it will work.
And a question from Nancy. Can you use this camera with a Blackmagic switch, the ATEM Mini, and control from a computer?
So let me answer that. I honestly don't know if the ATM, 4K Studio, I don't know if that switcher is taking NDI natively. Certainly, it'll take the 4K 30p out of HDMI from the camera, or it'll take if you're running full HD, it would certainly take the SDI feed. Again, I'm just not familiar enough with Blackmagic design to be able to tell you, is it NDI capable? If it is NDI capable, then you'd be able to run, the Cat5 signal from the camera into a network switch and connect that into the switcher, and then you'd be switching on the NDI source.
Okay, we have a question from Dave about the PTZ tracking function of the Edge Analytics device. And he asks, can PTZ auto tracking work in sports, for example, soccer action following the ball? So I guess Dave is asking, can it follow a ball instead of following a person?
Sure.
We'd like to think.
So our Edge Analytics appliance is strictly made for tracking a physical person. So we have 4 areas of detection. So face detection, size, shape, and color as you move in front of the camera. So unfortunately, it's just a person right now. And Drew, if you'd like to add on to that.
No, Kiana, you're correct. The Edge appliance is not intended to follow an object, but it is going to follow a person, and that's because we do facial detection. And once we've detected a face and we start tracking, there's some, I'm going to say 4 key tracking points, which is color and pattern, as well as shape and size, and then we use motion. If you're looking to track, say, a soccer ball, there is a Sony group called Hawkeye, and they are very good at doing exactly that. If you want more information, let John know, and we'll get somebody in touch with you about Hawkeye.
For sure. Dave, we actually have your contact information as part of the webinar registration, so we can put you in touch with our colleagues over at Hawkeye for sure. Question from Jessica. also related to PTZ auto tracking. Can the camera track someone who is 200 feet away? I'm dealing with a very long throw environment. So I guess it's a question about distance limitations on the edge analytics.
Right. Well, that one's going to come down to zoom. Okay, and so the BRC X400, SRG X400 are both 20x optical zoom. What Edge is going to track, you have two choices. You have upper body tracking and you have full body tracking. The key is from that distance between our optical zoom and then we have what's called clear image zoom. Again, if you're say running in full HD, your 20 times becomes 40 times. If we can pick up enough detail of the person's face in the detection zone, then yes, we could track them from that distance. I'd have to go look up on a lens calculator real quick that from that distance, can we do, I'm pretty sure we can do full body tracking. I'd have to look at like I say, what is the field of view from that distance to be able to do upper body tracking. But again, I think we can do that.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Question from Colin. Can you control a camera remotely via RS-232?
Our newer models are really Visca over IP, and for serial Visca, they're RS-422. The SRG 300H will do RS-232 control, and the SRG 120DH will also, well, actually any of the SRG 120D series, so we have the HDMI, SDI, and USB 3 version, those will take RS-232. But to be clear, if you're thinking of, oh, well, edge control with RS-232, the answer is no. It will only control HDMI output cameras that have Visca over IP capability.
Okay, thanks, Drew. We have a number of questions. This one also has to do with auto tracking. How would the auto tracking function work if there were more than one presenter in the frame? That's from Tony.
That's a good question. So with PTZ auto tracking, it only works as a one-to-one relationship. So it's going to be first person in the frame, and that's the person that the camera will automatically start tracking. Say, for example, here in my home office, if someone were to cross paths with me, I would still be in frame since I was first. If I want the camera to switch over to a new person, I would have to leave the frame of view, and then the next person would be the one that would get tracked. Additionally, say like in a classroom environment, if you do have the instructor at front of room and then you have students on the lower end and you're worried that, say, a head might be confused for the main speaker, we have options in our web UI that can basically block out an area of detection. That way the person that's actually physically standing will be detected instead of those that are sitting down.
Great. And that also addresses Alexander's question, similar question. Dean asks, do the physical outputs have lower latency than using the NDI technology?
I can answer
introduces, that. Go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, the answer is yes. Your native outputs, HDMI, SDI, are certainly going to be lower latency than when you're compressing video to go either like RTSP out of the camera or NDI out of the camera. You know, bringing it into a switcher and switching the video, your program out, you're not necessarily going to be using this to say do IMAG, right? You're doing this to produce a show, and viewers of that show aren't necessarily going to know about the latency, right? They're viewing it live. They're somewhere else. So Yeah. To answer the question, your HDMI and SDI are going to be lower latency than the NDI signal.
Okay, and I think we might have a related question. Stand by. Yeah, we've got a So David had a question. Is there any way to improve the latency for an IMAG event? So a related question.
Right. So our cameras, the latency latency is about 3 vertical frames. So if you're running in full HD, a vertical frame is 16.67 milliseconds. So 3 times that is just a hair above 50 milliseconds. Your eye can't necessarily detect that kind of a latency, but again, in a lot of IMAG applications, you're going to run into a video switcher that's adding in some frame buffering. Then you're going to turn around and run that program out to a projector or say a large, flat panel display, depending on the application. That's also adding in latency. So by the time you go from the lens to that display, it's more than just the 50 milliseconds because everything else along that video chain is adding in latency.
Very good, Drew. Dean asks about the ability to adjust parameters in the auto tracking to maintain the presenter's position in the center of the image. So he's asking, his exact question is there adjustability in the auto tracking to keep the presenter more centered in the shot as they are moving?
Sure. So I can answer that. So you should all be seeing my video feed currently. Our Edge Analytics appliance, what it does is it tries to keep you at center frame already automatically. So as I start moving about the room, it will try to keep me center frame as much as possible, of course, until it reaches a specific pan tilt zoom limit. In the case of, finally adjusting the frame, there's no way to do that. Our algorithm is automatic. The only thing you can do is play around with the parameters, like getting a tighter or farther shot, like Drew said, upper body or full body. But there's nothing to fine tune it, as the whole point is to have no need for a camera operator. Drew, would you like to add on to that?
No, that was a perfect answer. It's all automatic. If it was a case of, gee, after they stop moving, I want to move them to the left side of the frame or the right side of the frame, the only way to do that would be through an external controller like our Sony RMIP10 or Sony RMIP 500/1. But the real answer is what you gave, which is it's all automatic. So as you move left and right, we're trying to keep you centered, but once you stop moving, we actually do recenter you in the frame.
And we have a question from Tony. I assume he's referring to the new cameras that you had mentioned earlier in the Q&A. So availability on those cameras.
Right now, we are scheduled ex-factory end of August, so we should be shipping probably early September.
And again, those models were the SRG XP25 and the SRG XP1?
So it's the SRG XB25 and SRG XP1.
Got it.
I'm sorry, John, I may have misheard you. That might have been what you said.
Nope. That's correct. And let's see. I think we've addressed all of the questions. There was one pricing question, and that I answered privately. Claire, I would like to refer you to your local account manager so we have your contact information. and we will get you connected with the appropriate person at Sony. Wanted to remind everyone that we have a 4-question poll at the end. I'd ask that you please stick around and just take a minute. We'd like to know about your interest, your specific product and solution areas of interest for future webinars. We'd also welcome your additional feedback and suggestions. And we'd also like to remind you about our upcoming Tech Tuesday webinars for the rest of the month of July. So next week, we're going to be introducing some new 3LCD projectors, VPL PHZ12 and the VPL CWZ10. That's Tuesday, July 14th. On the 21st, we're going to be introducing a new Bravia professional display lineup, enhanced performance with new system-on-a-chip platform. And on the 28th of July, we're going to be making an announcement about a brand new 4K SXRD projector. With that, I thank you all again for your time, and I encourage you to please respond to the poll so that we can tailor these webinars to your areas of interest in the future. I encourage you to reach out to your local Sony account manager or local Sony dealer. And I wish you all a great day, and hope you all stay healthy, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.